Hello everyone, good evening. Just jumped over from Hey You. Now to finish the conversation here on Katie Brindle. We divide things up a bit, you see. Hey You is all about 1 minute to self-care. Over here, we're all about bells and whistles. We're all over everything. We're going to wang on. We're doing deeper meaningfuls, okay? This is what I love. And I realised, and I said to Jules this week, I said, goodness, I've been investing so much effort over on Hey You to help people with the 1 minute to self. I know we're back, boo, we're back. We're so busy over on Hey You, kind of helping people with their New Year's resolutions and really trying to get good habits installed in people, that I realised I haven't done a single live on Katie Brindle. This year we haven't talked about anything yet. And I thought, hang on, we have deep things that we like to discuss. And we've got things to say about it. So here we all are. Hello, everyone. Jules is here. Oh my gosh, Jules, we've missed you. Because Catherine now does the... it's all changed this year, isn't it, guys? Because Catherine now does the morning Qigong, which has now moved to Hey You Fit. And Catherine also supports me over on Hey You. This is largely, guys, because poor old Jules has been completely and utterly overwhelmed by... press releases and all the press stuff that press interviews that we have to do, because they're all done in writing now. So basically Jules does them because we have to make sure everything's been completely researched. So this is what Jules has been doing. You haven't seen her for ages. So we discussed this and we thought the thing is, what Hey You is doing at the moment is it's kind of talking about love and Valentine's and loving, we're thinking, loving yourself and taking time to look after yourself and care for yourself and win that 1 minute thing. But oh, poor old Jules, don't you start, poor old Jules, don't start giving her sympathy, everybody. Back on me, please. Jules, don't steal, I've missed this, stealing the line, like Catherine doesn't do this. Catherine just gets on with talking to everyone else. Jules is already creating mayhem, honestly. So, we thought this would be a very good opportunity to talk about something a little bit more sensitive and quite deep and meaningful. And I hope that I'm going to do a good job. I'm a bit nervous about it. That's not your top. This is my top. This is not your top. This is my top. I've nicked your top. I haven't even been able to come around to nick your top. Anyway. So we've had some really lovely questions which have come in. So I'll just, I'm not going to start answering them individually quite yet. I'm just going to give you a gist of some of the things that we want to talk about tonight. This is about heartache, okay, and grief and loss. This is the painful side of love, okay? This is not couples of people in restaurants having schmaltzy dinners and all the rest of it. There we go. We're dealing with pain, okay? We are dealing with grief and loss. We are dealing with people who've lost their parents, people who've lost children, people who can't overcome grief, people who can't recover from heartache. Those are the main ones. People getting over bad breakups, baby loss. These are the kinds of questions that cropped up. So I'm not going to answer them individually in turn because we've only got half an hour, okay? What we thought we would do is I will group them together and talk generally about the topics that these are covering, like grief and heartache, okay? I'll address everyone's issues because... and then we will always reconvene again, okay? Because the idea is I'm bringing back Sunday nights. I've reinstated it because we kind of missed it, and it's important. So I think the first thing to say to everybody is when we're dealing with the negative side of love and pain, is that we're dealing with the organs. Now I know I say this a lot, but I'm going to say it again so that we're all clear. In Chinese medicine, the organs are responsible for the entire health of your body. And the organs are a bit like a chessboard. Some pieces are more valuable than others, okay? So for example, the gallbladder can be removed and you will still be alive. The heart cannot. If you took out your heart or your liver, you would die straight away. So we know there's a hierarchy. But every single organ is responsible for the emotional patterns of the body. So when something awful happens, which it does, because that's what happens in life, we suffer loss and grief and bereavement, and it's painful, very painful, sometimes so painful we actually spend the rest of our life unable to get over the pain, or we live in relationship to it, or we carry it around, because the organs are responsible for the pain. But when something terrible happens, like you've lost someone you love and grief comes in, what happens is that pain goes somewhere in the body. It gets stored, normally in empty spaces. And the thing is that the lungs, to start with, protect the heart to a certain extent. The heart is in the lungs. The lungs are here. The heart is kind of just in there behind the breastbone. Now, the heart itself is also protected by the pericardium sheath like this, but it's in the lungs. And the thing is that the heart is the emperor of the body. The heart is like the king on the chessboard. Every single other organ in the body will take its place to protect the heart. Always. It will always pick it up. Now, where it happens to go is slightly dependent on the idiosyncrasies of your body, okay? But it doesn't matter, okay? The fact is, once you've identified what the emotion is that you're feeling, then you know where it is, okay? And what happens is largely these things get stored in the lungs. The lungs are responsible for grief, which is a major emotion connected to heartache as well. They're also connected to letting go, okay? That's the point. The lungs open as we breathe in and then close as we breathe out. So this motion of expanding and contracting is going on all day, all night, all day, all night, as the heart beats away, pumps the blood around the body. And ultimately the heart, as the commander of the body, is basically center command, and it is responsible for every single thing that is going on in your body. And here it is, okay, beating away. So when this awful thing happens, often what happens is that the lungs will step in front of the heart. So the heart's here, the lungs just go jump like that. They pick it up. They want to pick it up so that, and then that emotion goes into all these little bronchioles, got all this space. It's like a big kind of sponge going on in there. So, and remember, emotion is invisible. Okay, you just feel it. It's a feeling. Okay, so that sort of invisible and yet nonetheless there is what goes into the lungs. And then normally what happens is you get this restriction in the chest. And that's the key thing, is that there are normally, when you have an extreme pain in the body, it normally three things happen. One, the chest gets restricted because that grief kind of goes and it gets stuck like that. And it gets stuck in the space, okay? Normally because the pain is so bad that the lungs are protecting the heart. Because if the heart got it, then that becomes life and death situations. So the lungs kind of absorb like a big great sponge. Then two further things normally happen. One is that the chi of the body becomes blocked as a result. Now, anyone that does the Qigong class with me knows that stagnation, there's that expression in Chinese medicine, stagnation is death. Okay, now that's a bit melodramatic, but it gets the point across. It means you need the free flow of qi and blood around the body. Without the free flow of qi and blood, nothing moves smoothly, and then you start to feel the pain. Okay, it hurts. And then what happens? And then, sorry, the third thing is blocked blood. So it's basically blocked qi, and then it's blocked blood. So step one tends to get caught up in the lungs. It's 9 times out of 10 the lungs. Then the chi gets blocked, then the blood gets blocked. And then the pain, it hurts. You can feel it. You get a broken heart. You get your chest. You kind of, often people who are suffering from these problems find it hard to breathe, okay, because it's just overwhelming, or it feels like someone's like pressing down on you like this and you're being pressed. And it's just this overwhelming weight that lays down on the body, and it is so hard and it's so painful. There we go, my breathing's working, the grief, and it becomes a physical pain, okay, and we know this. Now, so that's the key. The first thing to understand, just to recap for anyone that's just joined, okay, is that when we're dealing with extreme pain, okay, it's ruled by the organs. The organs are in control, okay? Worry is in the spleen, fear is in the kidneys, anger, frustration in the liver, heartache and anxiety in the heart, and grief and letting go in the lungs. Now, normally when we're dealing with loss and heartache and grief, it's all about the lungs and the heart, okay? But normally what happens is, even if the heart breaks, and many of us on this feed will know what that feels like, when that heart breaks, it's still the lungs get involved, because it's so painful on the heart, the lungs step in, okay? That's what they do. They just step in to absorb it, like shock absorbers, okay? Then it gets stuck, then there's a restriction, and then it stays there. And then what happens is the body basically grieves and drags itself around and goes through the grief process where, you know, we don't want to talk to anyone, we don't want to see anybody, we don't want to go out, we can't cope, we don't want to get up, we don't want to get dressed. You feel like you're dragging this kind of like heavy ball around you, or weight on your shoulders. You can't stop crying, or you just close down completely, and it's awful. And eventually, as time passes, normally what happens is you just kind of step your way out of that, and then you sort of soldier on. But unless you can resolve the pain, it's always going to be inside the body. And I really do understand how this feels. I have really been through it, okay? So there is a lot of grief on this feed right now, and I know Jules and Catherine are very kindly helping and holding the energy whilst I talk about the bigger topics, okay? Because the good news, and I'm not saying that it's easy, but the good news is that you can actually do something about it. And that is a good start. We can't bring people back. We can't resolve unresolved conversations, but we can go into what to do about it to help you to start with. There is more spiritual aspects of stuff that I can talk about, but I think some of the more spiritual stuff, Jules, if you could just get a temperature of a lot of the questions and just keep a note of things, because the sort of the psycho-spiritual stuff is quite intense, and I'm not sure if necessarily everyone's ready for it, but we can get to that. So let's start practically first, okay? What you have to do if you want to start feeling better, that doesn't mean that we're going to forget the loss or the person or the energy or even necessarily want to draw them back in. But first of all, we need to get the body recovered from the acute condition. So if it's acute, it means it's just happened and you're like, oh, it's really, really like painful like this. Or it goes chronic, which means you've got so used to lugging this pain around, you don't even notice it's there, and yet it's weighing you down. And you're living in relationship to it. Okay, that this happens a lot, that pain frequency sits in the body and it's just there, and you got so used to it that you're constantly in relationship to that suffering. And these techniques that we talk about are really useful for this. Now, interestingly, when I go through the techniques, I'm not going to be telling you anything radically different from what we already do, but it's always about why. So one of the first things to know is that often pain, interestingly, settles in the lower ribs. Because what happens is it comes in here, okay, so like this, and the body doesn't want it up here, certainly doesn't want it around the heart, doesn't really want it in the upper chest, because we tend to shallow breathe up here when we're not thinking straight and when we're stressed, and the body knows this. It tends to push it down. We bury pain, we push it downwards. So often what happens is the pain goes right down into the large intestine, which is the pairing of the lung. So when the lung doesn't want to deal with it at all, the body will shove it right down because it's trying to push it out the other end. But often life and all the rest of it tends to just kind of stop that happening, and it settles in the space of the large intestine. And now, interestingly, loneliness, which is something that we are really dealing with right now. There are so many lonely people that I'm talking to at the moment. Loneliness, interestingly, is connected to the large intestine in Chinese medicine, and it's connected to this feeling of self-worth and worthlessness and loneliness that comes as a result of that. So that's when the pain's gone really, really, really buried, okay? But to start with, we're dealing with this lower lung area. And one of the easiest things to do is to pat that area. So get your boob out of the way and just pat gently around there. You can use your tapper, but you can just use a cupped hand. And it's very reassuring, patting yourself, weirdly. Something that we don't really do. But actually try it now, guys. Just try patting round your lower lungs and also round the diaphragm, because the diaphragm also gets stuck in this process, and just patting, it's really reassuring. She's grabbing her boob. It really, really helps. You like to be alone. I like to be alone, believe it or not, in this massive house. Not massive house, but massive crazy family situation I found myself in. Both pat, just pat. I think it's nicer patting one side at a time. Just get your boob out the way. Just pat, 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 pat. Because all we're trying to do, okay, is just release the diaphragm and just start to release. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? You see, it feels like a hug. It's nice. It's really reassuring. It's really simple. It's free. It's great. You don't have to buy anything. Just do this. That's the first thing to do. Just pat, 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 pat. So that's the first step. Now the next step is often what happens is a lot of this pain gets very congested around the ribs itself and in the kind of these here's a bit of rib there. So you've got the rib here, and then you've got the gap in between the ribs kind of going down. And often what you find is that the pain, heartache and grief and loss really gets stuck in the ribs. They also get stuck over the heart itself. I know when I was discovering all this amazing information and I was completely heartbroken, when I gua sha'd and for this I did use the Body Restore, when I gua sha'd the Body Restore right down into my boobs, I had, and I'm not joking, I had a crack down the front of my heart. and it came out purple, and I couldn't believe it, and I burst into tears because I couldn't believe the pain that I had been. It was like an icicle inside my heart, and then as I was doing it, I could feel my chest going, oh, like this. It was like, oh, it was really cathartic, and then I had to sleep for about, I'm not joking, 2 days, and then I felt better. It was really amazing. So when you're doing this work, use the body restorer, use the body oil, because again, these things have been designed. This is a wellness brand. These are healing tools we've got here. Frankincense, lotus, lang lang. These are aromas that really settle the body. They calm the spirit, okay? They calm the heart. And then the shape is perfect. You can just put the oil all over your chest, all over your chest. Don't gua sha your actual breast tissue, okay? So just, right, there's my boob. So, right, nothing here. You're going to be gua shaing all over here and then all under here. You can gua sha around the side here, but not the armpit itself. So basically anywhere where you've got ribs going on, put the oil on and then take the tool. What I do is I start with the heart because normally the heart is going to involve. Right, I have this spot on my heart and it won't go away. Jan, you keep doing it, okay? Take the tool, get it right down, go right down into the heart, bring it up and then go across and then use the double-ended bit to go between the ribs because you really, my God, there's something going on there. You really want to get inside and then underneath. Get that boob out of the way and go underneath using this bit here. Really go around. Remember there's a code on at the moment. This isn't Avon calling, but there is. Okay, it's Lisa 20. So if you're looking at this going, oh, there's a discount. Really get around those ribs. Gua sha is amazing for clearing the blockage. Now, when I did this, when I learned about all this and I was dealing with a lot of stuff, which I won't bore you with, but basically this came up deep purple. This came up like so red. I thought it was going to come out in hives. Okay, I had to stand there in the bathroom like this and just let the heat come off my chest. Okay, and then I went to bed and then I cried my eyes out all night and then I started to feel better. Okay, so that's the first step. You want to pat and you want to gua sha. And you want to really, in this instance, please do use the oil because the oil has got the right ingredients in it because that's what you need right now, okay? If you're finding that the loneliness is really getting to you at the moment, that it's less grief, but it's more loneliness, okay? Why? Oh, that's a good question. Why do I have a point in the centre of my chest that stays coloured if the rest comes up red? Because there's normally cold. You see, what normally happens when the heart gets affected by grief, it's a cold sensation. It's that kind of like that. And it's like an icicle comes into the body and it kind of sits in the heart like a splinter. Okay. And the heart is warm and it sits there and it takes a while to start dealing with it. The best thing you can do if you have anyone is to gua sha the back of the heart as well. Gua sha the back of the ribs if possible. Now this is all about self-care, so I'm always taking you to the front. But if you do have someone in your house that can do this for you, try and do each other's backs as well. Or tap, because the tap, really tap and really tap. Okay, tap. Like, hang on, let me get the tapper. Like, really, like mea culpa, you know? Like, oh, really, and breathe. Like that. And I know there's a lot of pain right now. I don't know anyone that's not suffering right now. But the one thing about pain is that it is a collective frequency. So I promise you that these techniques help everybody. And so let me just think. I'm just looking at what my notes and what else we could do. Now, the other thing that is good, which we do already, okay, is Qigong. Because the thing about Qigong is that it's really good for the heart. Because when you're in the exercise, the heart rate is really low, but you're stretching. It's not like Western exercise where you're pounding the heart, you're making it work. When you do Qigong, you make it relax. You put it into a really lovely relaxed state, but you stretch and you move the chi and the blood, but you're not breaking into sweat. So the heart doesn't have to do very much. It just goes into reception mode. So anybody here that is really, really suffering, one of the best things that you can do is either Sandra's breath work or the morning Qigong with me, or I would probably do the 12 Rivers or Heaven and Earth course, or the 12 Rivers and the Heaven and Earth flows to allow your body to start moving, because we need to strengthen the heart back up, okay, whilst we're clearing the pain. So whilst you're doing the gua sha and releasing, it's really helpful to start strengthening it up with the Qigong. So as again, exactly, you don't feel alone with everyone doing it. That's one of the reasons I love that morning class. That's why we do it. Okay, this business is very, very much attached to its community and giving. Okay, it's the new way of trading. We have to pay people, obviously, but we give. We've set the whole thing up so that you can receive first and then think, oh, I might try that. That's how we do it. And the amazing thing that we have with this community is each other. And what's quite incredible, okay, is you felt like you aged 10 years overnight when your dad dies. I really find your vibes comforting. Elizabeth, I'm so glad. I think the thing to say to everyone, okay, is that one of the most amazing things that you can do when you're in grief or heartache is feel loved by others and feel warmth of humanity and part of something. And I think one of the most incredible things that has come out of this group is ourselves. Is this amazing group, is these names, there's Boo just there's Jane. I mean, there's so many people, okay, who come up on these feeds every day, and we're all there talking to each other. And there you go, Calps, there you go, and there's Catherine now. And it's like, here we are. We're all talking to each other every single day, and up pops Jules, and you think, this is a community, okay, because human beings were designed to live in tribes. That's how we used to live. Okay, tribes of people or caravans of people. This is how we were. We were in collective groups, and for about the last sort of 150 odd years, we've sort of been pursuing the kind of micro family unit, which doesn't really work. And what's so amazing about this group is this heartfelt kind of reach out from everybody in the group to each other, so that when you're suffering, what happens? Because Jules and I were talking about this before, is that pain is a frequency, okay? And what happens is when you have pain and you've experienced pain, which I know all of us have at a very big level, is it creates a frequency in the body called compassion. And it means we understand each other, okay? It means that we literally can sit here and go, okay, I haven't been through your specific problem, but I do know what it feels like. Okay, I know what that pain feels like. My version of that was as bad. It was just as painful. And it allows that frequency to reach out. And it reaches out through Instagram. This is what's quite incredible about modern technology. It's like, who would have thought? And yet it does. You can feel the sense of energy through the group. Even when I was on QVC last night, I could sense the energy of the group. It was quite brilliant. And it will really help you. And the thing is, these techniques I'm talking about, they're the truth. Okay, I'm not saying that it's easy. And I'm not saying that I'm delighted that we're all in this situation. But I am saying that there are things that we can do that are going to make us feel better. And supporting each other is so important. So thank you for joining me on these feeds, because it makes such a difference. Remember that lovely Qigong that we have on Facebook, which Catherine is really like the custodian of, where you're all supporting each other. It's the most amazing group. It's like a giant sort of sorority, I guess. I mean, it's largely females. So the yeses will, of course, get saved. So the direction of gua sha, yes, always away from the heart, okay? So probably the best thing to say for today, because there are more questions to talk about. And Jules, I think you and I need to do a couple of, maybe the newsletter next week. I think we can go into more. And the other thing to say, guys, is that I talk a lot about this in the book. Now, I'm not trying to peddle my wares or anything, but I really do. When Jules and I were discussing the questions before I came on, we were like, God, I'd forgotten some of the content. Oh my God, we really talk about this. So all of these techniques are discussed in the book. Okay, we talk about emotional alchemy, we talk about the transformation of pain, and we talk and show you about how to do the gua sha. I mean, all of which I've shown you now for free as well. But just in case you're interested, it is in there, okay? And when you want to sort of, I know when I was in the midst and the depths of my emotional pain, which was the second major drama that happened in my life, and it just was just like overwhelming, and you literally lose the will to live. I mean, that is what happens. You just want to die, but you don't die because you can't, but you just would wish it would all just come to an end. And that was when this book that happened to be by the side of my bed, I'd obviously bought it at some point, not actually picked it up. And then suddenly I was just in the depths of it, and then just reached for this book and just picked it up and started to read it. And that was the beginning of my journey into what I'm now doing. Okay, so there was something rather lovely about losing myself in that book at the time. So it is useful if you've not actually read it, okay? Because there's a lot of stuff that I go into there, which, as I've said, all of which I've given you to on the feed, but it is there to write down. And I found doing that really, really helped me. It didn't make me feel amazing. It just I felt less horrendous at the start. And then opened up this world of this kind of rebirth that then took place, because my interest, my mother had died and all this stuff, and my interest just kind of went into this thing that just helped me kind of grow out of it. And then out of the darkness came the light. So I think that's the key thing to say, is that Qigong is really fantastic, gua sha, tapping, patting. I think one other last thing to say, actually, guys, is that the creative expression, actually, I was just about to sort of teeper off into that just then, because I think what I did with the pain that I was going through was it stopped. What happened was an interest, something went in my brain when I started reading that book. It was just like a frequency, and it was just like, ooh, hang on, what's this? Now, I wasn't happy about it. I didn't feel great about it. It wasn't like, wow, it's amazing. This was just slight alleviation to my misery, okay? And this is actually quite a good tactic, because when you feel this wretched, it's very, very hard to pick yourself up and find anything to do or anything to distract yourself, because it's just overwhelming. You get like 2 seconds, maybe first thing in the morning, of respite where you feel all right, and then immediately it's straight down, and you're like, oh my God, here we go again. Here we go. It's like a cloud that just comes over you. And creative expression is one of the best ways to start to deal with that. It takes a little bit of time and it takes a little bit of practice, but it does work, okay? So to find yourself something that you love to do, some kind of creative expression that you love. So for me, it was discovering all of this and trying to talk about it and explain it. It just, to start with, just took my mind off it. Even if it was for 5 seconds, it was so overwhelming at the time that actually that was better than nothing, even if it was just 5 seconds. And slowly but surely, as Lao Tzu said, the journey of 10,000 miles starts with a single step. That was a single step, and slowly but surely I went into the journey. But any creative expression, it's a very, very powerful way to digest and express thoughts and feelings, okay? So because the mind and body gets stuck in grief and pain, it just makes you freeze it like this, and then it holds you at this frequency, okay? It's really important to allow that creative energy to start to through. So whether it's journaling or gardening or tapestry or knitting or painting or cooking, something creative, okay? And the more acute you feel the pain, the more it would be worth going into that hobby. And one of the things to say is that often when you look at, say, brilliant people, like brilliant artists or brilliant fashion designers, often they're creating through pain. Like Alexander McQueen was a really good example. So that the acute pain he was feeling turned into this incredible brilliance that he created. Okay, and that's a really important thing to bear in mind, so that the deeper the pain, the more you need to go into that creative kind of execution. And then because the mind and body get stuck, it is so important to exercise, okay? Now, I know that that's a very standard thing to say, but it's not just about like going to the gym and running. Please don't do that, because when the heart and the lungs are caught up in all of this, it's much, much better to do things like Qigong, okay? I would say Qigong, obviously do yoga if you like yoga, but this is the way to kind of start to deal with this stuff, okay? So to recap, because I need to stop now, we will continue this conversation, guys. Please message us with any more questions or anything that this is. I don't want to go too deep to start with. It's a big topic, and I need to just kind of get the energy of the group, okay, before I go into all the spiritual stuff and all the kind of the light and the resonances of the human soul and all this. We will do this if we're ready to do it, okay? So to start with, we pat, we gua sha, we breathe, we practice Qigong. Okay, and we go into some deep creativity. They are the first ways to start. We then enjoy the community. There's nothing compulsory. You don't have to do it, but the community is there to support you. Catherine is there. She's amazing, and we're here to support each other. Okay, so yes, we will talk. I will probably do a masterclass. I probably won't be able to do one now until kind of like March, just because they're all booked up. And anyway, I think these topics are so painful at the moment. I think we need it, okay? So we will continue this topic, okay? We will be talking every Sunday evening. It's kind of that time for love at the moment. So please message us with anything that this has sparked so that we can help you, okay? And do enjoy the community, because we're here to help each other as much as anything, okay? You guys really helped me. Look at what you did for me yesterday. This is what the community is all about. Snoopy, you've just had some bad news. I hope you're okay. Thank you all so much for joining. Quite a deep and meaningful topic for this evening, but there are the initial steps. Okay, there's more to it. There's a lot about it in the book if you're interested, but start with those techniques to start with, and we're going to take the conversation deeper. Okay, thank you all so much. Snoopy, I hope you're okay. If you need anything, Catherine is here, okay, and we can look after you. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight, and I will see you at 8 o'clock tomorrow on Here You Fit.